Hello friends, welcome to this making of video for the Granny's Flower Patch Quilt. The Granny's Flower Patch Quilt evolved after looking at the various ways a traditional grandmother's flower garden quilt design could be created. It's hard not to fall in love with this iconic English paper piecing design, and it is more often than not on every EPPer's to make wish list. I too have a desire to make one. But I also have a desire to make English paper piecing accessible to time-poor stitchers who love the idea of hand stitching, but perhaps don't want to hand stitch an entire quilt together. And so I started to think about how you could deconstruct a grandmother's flower quilt to make a simpler version that still incorporated hexie flowers and could still be beautiful. As usual, when starting a new quilt design, I headed to my stash to see what would inspire me. I started with a single fabric, dark teal with a small floral print on it, and built my selection around this, pulling out fabrics that use the same colours as in the first print. When selecting fabric, I always make sure to select some low volumes and solids to help with contrast and harmony. Next, I started to make the double hexie flowers, choosing a solid and pattern fabric that complemented each other. If I used solid for the centre flower, I did the outer petals in a print and vice versa. For the single flowers, I did pattern fabrics for the petals and chose a solid centre that picked up on the main petal colour in the petal fabric while also allowing for contrast. Once I had all my flowers ready, it was time to choose how and what I was going to applique them onto. I decided to slip stitch applique the double hexie flowers onto 4 patch blocks using solid pastel colours. These flower blocks would then be stitched together 4 across and 4 down to create the quilt top. Once the quilt top was complete, I then appliqued using the same method the single flowers in between the double ones where the block seams met. Once I had all my flowers appliqued, it was time to quilt. I created a pieced back from 2 fabrics and pin basted the quilt. I decided to try out Wonderful's spaghetti and fruity 12-weight cotton thread for the quilting. I really enjoyed using this thread. I was able to colour match the threads to my fabrics pretty well and it was nice to quilt with. I did a combination of short and long quilt stitches. For the binding, I ended up choosing a lovely Liberty floral fabric that picked up on the colours in the hexie flowers. I've never used a small floral print for binding, nor Liberty fabric, and I love how it has turned out. Using the floral print gives the whole quilt a little lift, and I think if I'd gone with one of the plainer options I was thinking of, it would have left the quilt feeling flat and a bit plain. To stitch my binding down on the back, I chose a different technique that I had seen Amanda of Prairie Quilt Co. do on one of her quilts. She used a large running stitch that shows on the back. I used the same fruity, variegated thread that I had used to quilt around my hexie flowers in big stitches to sew down the binding, which I think then links back to the quilting on the front. you think?
Great.
Great.
How do you build this?
I don't build it, you sew it.
How do you sew this?
Well, first I had to make all the flowers. I had to stitch them all together. And then I made the background block, and then I stitched the flower to the background, and then I stitched all the blocks together. And then I had to quilt it to bind all the layers. Now I need to do the binding, and then it'll be finished. I am so happy with my finished Granny Flowers patch quilt. It is the perfect lap size quilt and I have enjoyed snuggling under it of an evening while I sit and stitch. There is just something so beautiful about creating hexie flowers. This quilt reminds me of summer blooms in my garden, and now I can feel the happiness they bring me all year round with my quilt. The Granny's Flower Patch Quilt is a choose-your-own adventure quilt pattern. The pattern can be made in 4 different sizes: crib, lap, twin, single and queen. There are 5 different pattern versions that use either hexagons or jewels for a twist. My version is also included. All instructions are included so that you can plan out your shapes, prepare your fabric, how to piece and applique your flowers, construct the quilt top and quilting. This is the perfect pattern if you are just getting started in English paper piecing. I hope you have enjoyed this behind the scenes look at how I created my Granny's Flower Patch quilt. This video is not meant to be a tutorial, but rather an insight to my process when making this quilt. If you would like to make your own Granny's Flower Patch quilt, you can find a link to the pattern in the description box of this video, as well as links to my shop and where you can follow and connect with me on social media. Happy stitching, and may your stitching bring you joy and peace.